Chapter 19. Vice Hall Master Zhou's gaze. It was the first day of July, with clear skies. It should have been a good day. But when Lin Yuan saw a law enforcement disciple standing at the entrance of the Azure Jade courtyard, he remembered that he had been punished by Vice Hall MAS Zhou for falsely reporting his cultivation level, resulting in 10 days of sweeping the law enforcement hall.
Senior brother, sorry to trouble you to come over. Hey, I'll go now.
Lin Yuan scratched his head.
Let's go.
The law enforcement disciple replied expressionlessly, turning and walking away. Lin Yuan hurriedly followed.
May I know how to address senior brother?
Lin Yuan asked.
Blue moon, as pure as water, with the moon shining high.
The law enforcement disciple replied casually.
I've heard of you for a long time.
Blue Moon turned his head, silent. And then the conversation awkwardly came to a halt. Lin Yuan asked a few more questions, but the law enforcement disciple remained silent, like a closed jar. Soon, the two arrived at the law enforcement hall. Blue Moon handed over a broom, saying,
Use this broom to sweep.
Lin Yuan was stunned.
Can't I use dust removal technique?
He asked. Blue Moon gave him a disdainful look.
Are you dumb or am I dumb? This is a punishment, not a game. Remember to use the broom to sweep, and make sure it's clean.
He placed the broom in Lin Yuan's hand, and then walked away. Lin Yuan looked at the vast law enforcement hall, speechless. Whatever, let's just sweep. Lin Yuan picked up the broom and started sweeping slowly. The law enforcement hall seemed to have experienced a sandstorm yesterday, as the floor was covered with a thick layer of dust. With an area of over 1,000 square meters, it would take a long time to sweep the entire law enforcement hall with a broom. Lin Yuan felt that things were not as simple as they seemed. But he didn't have the energy to delve deeper into the matter. He just followed Blue Moon's instructions and slowly swept, gathering the dust bit by bit and sweeping it into the dustpan. He didn't want to attract attention. After getting through these days, he would stay in the Azure Jade courtyard, and not come out, avoiding any trouble. On a wooden building opposite the law enforcement hall, Zhou Ping was drinking tea, glancing at Lin Yuan, who was cleaning the hall. Across from him, Blue Moon stood respectfully.
How did the investigation go?
Zhou Ping asked calmly. Blue Moon replied.
Lord, we haven't found anything unusual. His movements have been normal, and he hasn't left the sect for years.
Zhou Ping sipped his tea, squinting his eyes as he pondered.
This is odd. He cultivated to the 4th level of Qi refinement in 10 years. But in just 2 months, he's already at the 7th level. There must be something wrong with him.
Lin Yuan's stealth technique had no effect on him. Lin Yuan had actually broken through to the 7th level of Qi refinement. Such advancement was simply abnormal. There was no way it could have happened without some extraordinary experience. But the problem was that Lin Yuan hadn't left the sect at all. He spent the first 10 years in the menial disciple area, and even after becoming an outer disciple, he had been staying between the Azure Jade courtyard and his own home. Could there have been some extraordinary experience in the menial disciple area?
You stay here and keep an eye on him. If he shows any unusual behavior, send me a message.
Zhou Ping instructed Blue Moon. Blue Moon nodded.
Yes, Lord.
Zhou Ping turned and left the wooden building. He didn't fly with his sword, but instead used footwork, quickly arriving at the outer disciple residential area. It didn't take long for him to arrive at Lin Yuan's former residence. Outside the residence, there was a layer of defensive array. This array was set up by the sect, and even connected to the entire sect's grand array. The original intention of this array was to allow outer disciples to contribute their strength when defending against external enemies and to protect disciples during normal times. This array couldn't be broken casually. However, as the deputy head of the law enforcement hall, Zhou Ping naturally had the authority to open the array. Although his actions would be recorded in the sect's grand array, nobody would usually bother about it. Zhou Ping took out his token and pressed it against the door. The array naturally opened a portal. Zhou Ping stepped into it, and his divine sense instantly spread out, scanning the entire room. In sight, it was very empty. The residence was already empty. His divine sense carefully observed the surroundings, but he didn't notice anything unusual. Zhou Ping wasn't surprised either. This residence had been abandoned by Lin Yuan, and it was unlikely that any treasures would be left here. Zhou Ping walked out of the residence and headed straight to the Azure Jade courtyard. Since Lin Yuan hadn't assigned any tasks to the Spirit Grass disciples yet, there wasn't a single person in the Azure Jade courtyard at this time. Zhou Ping looked at the protective array outside the Azure Jade courtyard and took out his own token. A beam of light struck the array, opening a portal. Zhou Ping flashed into the Azure Jade courtyard. He roughly browsed through the Azure Jade courtyard before heading to Lin Yuan's courtyard. Outside the courtyard, there was also an array, but this array was not connected to the sect's grand array. This couldn't stop Zhou Ping at all. He was also an array master, and arrays like this, without anyone to control them, were essentially useless. With a flicker of light in his eyes, he easily saw through the array covering the courtyard. He cast several disassembling array spells, and easily opened a door. Stepping inside, he entered the courtyard. Zhou Ping began to observe the situation in the courtyard. When he arrived at the cultivation room, Zhou Ping suddenly exclaimed. He beckoned, and a handful of residue from depleted spirit stones gathered between his fingers. With a GHT rub, his eyes narrowed. The dust after the depletion of intermediate-grade spirit stones. Intermediate-grade spirit stones. This is strange. Lin Yuan couldn't possibly obtain intermediate-grade spirit stones through normal channels. There must be something wrong. Zhou Ping's mind stirred. His guess was correct, but he didn't feel overly pleased. Because he didn't lack intermediate-grade spirit stones, what he lacked were encounters that could break through realms, especially those that could affect the foundational realm. However, the presence of this dust was enough to prove that Lin Yuan had secrets. Because just a few intermediate-grade spirit stones couldn't help Lin Yuan break through realms quickly. He restored the dust to its original state, searched carefully again, but found no further formation. Soon, he found the backyard. 5 spiritual plants appeared before his eyes. Clear spirit tea. Bitter mustard tea. Zhou Ping glanced at them a few more times, shook his head, and paid no more attention. Lower-grade yellow-level spiritual plants didn't catch his eye at all. Could it be that he carries things with him? Some cultivators like to carry most of their belongings with them, so if there were really any encounters, it's very likely they would be in Lin Yuan's storage pouch, or even directly on him. Zhou Ping pondered for a moment, then returned to the wooden building. Afterwards, he set a gravel-size object in the ashes on the incense altar. Then he left as if he had never been there. Inside the disciplinary hall, Lin Yuan was still slowly cleaning up the dust. When Zhou Ping returned to the wooden building, Lin Yuan had only cleaned about 1/10.
What's the situation?
Zhou Ping asked casually.
No. Is cleaning very diligently.
Blue Moon shook his head. Zhou Ping nodded silently, quietly sipping his tea. However, after waiting for half an hour, and seeing Lin Yuan still not finished cleaning, Zhou Ping himself felt a bit speechless.
Go and tell him to hurry up and finish cleaning. Don't dawdle.
Zhou Ping instructed.
Yes. Vice Hall Master.
Blue Moon quickly went downstairs, and shouted at Lin Yuan in the disciplinary hall.
What are you dawdling for? Hurry up and finish cleaning and get out of here.
Lin Yuan was speechless.
Didn't you say you want me to use the broom?
Blue Moon rolled his eyes.
Can't you use the broom and the dust removal technique at the same time? You're done for today. People will be coming soon.
Lin Yuan didn't argue with him. After all, he was the one calling the shots. Just get through it.